Hello everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again. And this time we're going to take a second and a third look at some more leaked footage of the Robert Pattison Batman suit for the new Batman movie directed by Matt Reeves, which is coming out 2021. I think in June 2021 this is coming out. And if you remember, initially a couple of weeks ago we had an initial reveal of the costume for the first time, and it was in this kind of really red tainted background. We had a head shot, and then we also had a chest shot of the new costume that was to be worn by Robert Pattison. And I did a breakdown of that costume, saying I wasn't overly convinced. I know a lot of people had a problem with the fact that it was too much armor. You know, Batman should be wearing such a heavily armor plated costume if he's gonna have all this stealth like ninja martial art type kind of fighting style? You know, shouldn't that stuff be all wearing him down? We commented about the insignia. First of all, people have related to the fact that it could be parts of the gun that was used to kill his parents. Other people, me included, felt it was just more like batarangs in his insignia on there. And we commented especially about the collar itself, which I didn't like, as well as the cowl, which seemed to be connected by seams rather than just one whole kind of material. So that's kind of a quick revision of the first look of the Batman suit. So I'm going to cover more a second and third look. So a couple of days ago we had the reveal of the suit in the daylight, and it was in this kind of graveyard type surrounding. So I don't know if this is going to be a scene where Batman is reflecting on his parents' death, and then we see more later on a shot with him on a motorbike. So just going to take a look at this first shot here, and it's clearly where it's not, obviously it's not Robert Pattison, it's a stuntman on there, and the costume probably works better on him because the stuntman, we assume, is going to be of much more of a bigger build than Robert Pattison, and it gives us a much clearer look. And again, we just see all the features that we saw in the first reveal. That we see the sort of shoulder pads, armor plated here, and we look at his arms, and he's got all of these kind of arrows. I don't know what they're for, whether they're like just combat arrows. We see the signature kind of spiky wrist parts of the forearm that we associate with most of all of Batman costumes on here. We see the insignia here on the chest, which I think again is going to be batarangs. You can clearly see they're shaped more like batarangs on here. We get a better look now at the mid-abdomen part, which is not bad. It's kind of got these zigzag shapes on here. We've got a few segments on here. You know, I've always preferred the more classic look where we get an actual anatomical abdomen, you know, the kind of the 6-pack or the 8-pack that we normally get from comics on here. But we also get the ears, and again, that's where the big problem is. I don't like the ears. They just don't look right, do they? They're too small. They just look too pointy. They don't look like they're a right fit for the head, which again, we can clearly see still. We've got the seams connection part of the head, of the cowl part on here, and the ears don't look right. They just don't fit the head part. They just look too small, too pointy. They just look really off looking on here. We've got here, he's wearing kind of goggles. Again, I remarked about that in the first look that we did on here. He's got these more goggles kind of look here. So I don't know if we're not going to see the traditional eyeliner eyes that we normally get from the Batman costume. I don't think we're going to see the whitened eyes either, that I know a lot of people wanted to see. That's more the comic book version on here. So it looks like, yeah, if this is in the rain, we can see the drips of water on his costume. So this is going to be a chase in a rain-drenched kind of sequence. So it would make sense, you could argue, that he's wearing more kind of glass-plated goggles to cover his eyes. Again, the collar I just don't like. I just don't like the look of it. Again, I think when we look at the collar and the kind of segments within his traps and his shoulders, I think that's to account more for the fact that Pattison does have a slender physique. So when you have an actor who's got a slender physique, you add more armor plates on to kind of bulk him up more on there. Like I said, the stuntman guy looks a bit more physically imposing as we would expect on here. So yeah, it's just that those ears, I don't really. I mean, this is a better look than the first movie. We can see he's got those segments in his neck. Again, we get that facet in the Batman costumes. They do this. We notice as well in the Nolan Batman films. They have this segments in it, so it enables him to turn his head more rather than just have one kind of bulky cowl, which makes it more difficult for him to move his head and his neck around on there. So this isn't a terrible. This is a better look than the first reveal that we got. If we notice that he's not wearing a cape now, this could be two instances here where, because it's a bike chase, and I'll bring up the second picture here. Because it's a bike chase, of course, you wouldn't wear a cape because of safety issues. You wouldn't want the cape getting caught up in the wheels or anything. Um, you know, it's one of those where normally when they add the cape in later during post production, you see you have the red dots. If you look at the behind the scenes footage of Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, you'll see when they're in the fight sequences or action sequences, they have the red dots on their shoulders and their back, and they use those red dots to later on add in the cape later. So it's just safer and it's just more functional for the actors and the stuntmen not to have this big old cape as they're fighting or they're on a harness trying to fly. So again, the motorbike here doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look. It just looks more regular of a regular bike, and I think I want, if he's going to have the car or the bike, and we'll speak about the car in a minute. You want it to have much more of a Batman trademark style, right? A Batman trademark fluidity about it. You don't want it just to be a regular bike. Okay, and we're going to talk about this again with the Batmobile when we talk about, well, is this the prototype, the first version? Because it seems like this movie is going to concentrate on his first year or his first couple of months as Batman. So the suit and the designs we're looking at now aren't going to be, if you like, the consummate look for the Batman suit on here. But again, it doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look bad. It just looks regular. Just looks normal. And I think you want it to be a bit more distinctive on here. So that's really the second look that was released a week or two ago. And now if we go more forward, because so we're on the 5th of March now, so yesterday some more footage was released, and this time it was of Batman with the Batmobile. We get a much more better look at the actual Batmobile that he's going to be using on here. And we get this shot here, and it's in a very sort of greyish, sort of sepia toned like background. Again, smoke, very smoky, very misty. That's what you'd want to see from a Gotham City, right? I think the problem with the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Returns of the Nolan movies is that Gotham just looks like a regular, I think normal city landscape. What they filmed it in Chicago and Detroit. I think those are kind of locations they filmed those scenes in, and it just looked a very regular, normal city. Now, what made the Burton films so special is that they really made Gotham this distinctive, kind of very out of this world environment, out of this world landscape, something you could only imagine Batman and his villains inhabiting in. That's what made Gotham so special. It should be dark and grimy, and you have these massive sort of gothic like landscapes and statuesques, really making it this real vivid and distinctive world that Batman can live and breathe in and take on these criminals in. So I like that. Now we look at the car here, right? And yeah, if we look at the design of it, a lot of people have mentioned it already. Yeah, the problem is, it just, to me, it just looks too much like a regular car, like a regular like Chevette, like we normally see in your kind of your Fast and Furious movies. It just, we've got the regular sort of the front part here and the wheels. We see more of the wings at the back, if we could call them that. I like the back part because the back part gives it a more of a futuristic kind of distinctive feel. So the first segment just looks like a regular car, like so what? It just looks bland, just looks boring, doesn't look very interesting. But the back rear end of the car looks a lot more stylish. Yeah, this is what you'd want to expect to see from Batmobile. We've got those red lights on there, and you can see all the engines and the cylinder lights at the back on there. So I like the back part a bit more, and you kind of got the sort of the back end wings to it. A lot of people have commented that it looks more like Batman this time has a functional car. You know, they criticised the Tumbler in Nolan's movies because it was just too big, too bulky. You know, it wasn't very conspicuous, was it? How can you drive around with tight corners in that thing? You know, that was very much more like a military tank aesthetic to it. So they've gone for a much more sleeker, much more, if you like, practical look about this. I just think this shot here, the car itself looks very ordinary. I want to see more segments on the front part of the car. You know, what made the Burton version so great is that it really had that bat kind of outlook to it, but you still had the car feel. It was like this, it was sleek, it was smooth, but it still had that modern sort of really stylish futuristic feel to it. This doesn't quite have that overall. Again, we do have to bear in mind we're looking at a very kind of smoky orientated picture here, so we can't see the Batmobile itself all in its glory on here. One thing I would say, that Batman looks good on here. You see here we've got the cape sort of flapping away in the background. This looks a better shot here. Okay, we can still see the collar at the back of his neck, but this looks a lot better. This looks a lot more of a Batman type pose on here. But it's always going to be, whenever you've got your back turned and you have the cowl sort of flapping out more, it's going to look more like a Batman pose on it. The cowl and the ears actually look better as well in this shot here on this. So okay, so we're going to look at the second part now, and this is the rear view end of the Batmobile on here, and this looks a lot of a more cleaner, crisper shot. And here we get a much better view of the rear wings of the Batmobile, and this looks very good. This again, this is what I want to see more of. I want to see more of this. This looks stylish on here again. This looks stylish. Everything from the rear to the side of the wheels, from the cylinders here. You've got these kind of poles, if you like, sticking out from the top end of the car. See, this looks more stylish. You always want a Batmobile to look more stylish on here. And again, we've got the red lights here. Everything good on here. This was the same as the Snyder version. If you remember the trailers for the Batman vs Superman, you had that shot where the Batmobile, we see it from the rear end, kind of driving, I think, away from an explosion, and that had a lot of segments to it from the back wheels. Similar to here, we get a lot of the cylinder parts here, and yeah, that looks a lot better. So again, because it's very black, we're getting this kind of feeling that this is the first prototype. I don't think this is going to be the finished version. I think this is going to be maybe an earlier scene, a first version of the Batmobile, and I think we're going to get a more consummate version, like the suit. Again, this is year one, or the first couple of weeks, however way you want to call it, of the suit. So again, I think we're going to see an upgrade here, but this looks fine. You can even see a little bit of the dashboard. You see the dashboard here looks fairly ordinary. Again, this looks more like a stylish kind of regular kind of car on here. So again, that's a very good shot on here. And if you see here, we see the costume in the background here. You see him walking towards it. I'm going to say again, he still looks a bit too thin. He just looks thinner here, just too skinnier here. We can see again, as I pointed out in the second look with the stuntman, here we can see the wrist gauntlets that he's got on there again, right? So maybe that's a feature. I thought the wrist gauntlets were just going to be part of the sequence that we saw in the graveyard, but maybe that's an actual facet of the costume. Again, that this is all done again to bulk up Pattison's physique, bulk up his shoulders, bulk up his arms. This is what all this is just part of on here. We're getting the belt again, which is, you know, is a black standard belt. You know, standard look for the Batman costumes that the belt is going to be yellow or golden, but they've referred away from that. They've kept it more black on here. So again, we get a look at the cape, but I just think the physique of him himself, he just looks a bit just too slim, just too slender. What we want to see from Batman. Um, so not a bad shot again. Not a terrible. Again, we have the grey smoky background of Gotham. We see the light shining on him. So again, it's not bad. I just want, I think, a bit more style, a bit more dynamic quality, both from the Batmobile and the suit. Um, so we go away now and we go into this third look here. We bring up, and this is a front view, more of a diagonal front view of the Batmobile on here. And again, this is what I'm more critical of, is that it just looks too much like a regular car. Okay, and people have referred, it's got that sort of 70s kind of stylish cars that we all sort of saw in the past, sort of those 70s road movies a lot. People have made plenty of references to the Fast and Furious movies, but again, if we look at everything from the roof to the side parts here and to the front, I don't like the front part either. The sort of flat front end, I really don't like that. It just gives it a kind of a boxy kind of feel. There's nothing particularly stylish or distinctive about it. It just doesn't look like a Batmobile. Again, this is all of these features make me feel that this is a prototype. You know, again, I'll keep referring to the Burton movies. They were so special because if you look at the front part, the Burton had those two curved segments, and then it kind of had the sort of the headed point at the front end of the car, really to give this distinctive bat look about it. This doesn't have this. It reminds me a bit of the Adam West version, that kind of the box fronted end of the front part. But again, even the Adam West version, you had the kind of more red parts to give it a bit more of a distinctive, colourful feel to it. This just looks like just a box standard car. Again, there's just no real imagination here. We've got the front segments of the bonnet here. Again, I don't know if in the movie those are going to slide in, slide that. We're going to see guns popping out of there, other weaponry popping out of there as he drives through the streets. Again, like I said, I still prefer the back end of the car. We got those pointy ends at the back end of the car. I want to see that more at the front end of the car. Yeah, the lights look good. It gives that really kind of more futuristic feel to it. But you see, again, you've got the bottom end of the rear car. It just, I don't know, it just doesn't look very dynamic. It doesn't look very kind of distinguishable to me. It doesn't look terrible. It just doesn't look very, I don't know, like it would stand out. And I think a Batmobile has to fit with the character. You know, Bruce Wayne wouldn't build a standard car. You know, he's got plenty of those, as we know, billionaire. He could just move around in a standard car. The Batmobile has to stand out. So whenever we see an entrance of this, we know, right, this is Batman's time. He's arriving now. This is something special. So, yeah, just nothing too special on the Batmobile. Again, we look at the suit. Now, to be fair, the ears look better here. The ears look a bit more thicker. They look like they suit the cowl a bit more, but again, he just looks too small. He just looks too slim. I can't get away from this. And again, they can do sorts of editing and filming tricks where they can make him look bigger. They can film him from certain angles to make him look bigger and more imposing on there. But here, he just looks still too thin. And if we actually look at the costume, it's funny because a lot of people complained about Christian Bale's version, that it was too kind of Kevlar orientated, armor orientated, and there was no real colour to it, right? But this is a similar look here, right? This is very similar look here. It's the same thing. There's not really anything distinctive here. There's no real colours standing out. It's just all in black. It's all armor plated on here. There's nothing really special stand out the costume. I mean, at least the Nolan version had the yellow belt, or the golden belt rather. This doesn't even have that. It just looks a very bland batsuit. You know, I actually pretty much liked the Affleck version because you had the grey, and then you had the kind of the big bolder bat insignia on there. I quite liked that, and if you remember, the Burton version had the yellow insignia as well. You just see another colour just to sort of give it a better contrast. Otherwise, he just looks like a sort of armour-plated kind of government kind of spy or government troop. There's nothing special about the costume standing out on here. You know, it just, I don't know. He's just too slender. He's just too slim on here. But again, not a bad shot. This third footage is probably the best footage they've released so far, because it gives you a more distinctive look of the city. That's what I said, that sepia tone, and the Batmobile and the Batsuit, it fits this whole environment. Again, gives that dark, gritty aesthetic, which is what you want to see in a Gotham landscape. That's precisely the more appropriate and suitable look that you want from a Gotham city. So yeah, those are my overall thoughts. This is the best footage they've released so far. It's kind of strange, they're releasing quite a lot of footage. I can understand one screenshot, and as I mentioned in the first breakdown, they want to do this to gauge people's reactions. I think part of this was to do with the fallout of Birds of Prey. You know, a lot of the criticisms was the fact that the characters didn't look like the characters from the source material. We're talking about Huntress and Black Canary in particular. So I think this is a smart move from Warner Brothers, again, just gauging people's reactions and how they feel towards this. But it's just strange to have so much footage released within really the last sort of 3-4 weeks of each other. You know, are we going to get more footage 2 or 3 weeks later down the line? Remember, this movie doesn't come out till next year, June next year. So I wouldn't really expect to see a trailer until, what are we in March now? So maybe July, August, September. I wouldn't expect to see any kind of teaser footage. And then maybe later on, November, December time, we would probably get the first full-on trailer for this. So yeah, those are my overall thoughts. Overall, let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you really liking this? Do you really like the car? Do you like the fact that it's a lot more of a smaller size, smaller scale, mobile vehicle? This is a vehicle you can imagine Batman driving around in a lot more than, let's say, the Nolan's Tumbler on there. Do you like the fact that it's less complicated than the Snyder version, which had all these kind of weird segments all over the Batmobile here? You just like the fact it's got this very sort of gritty 70s style. Yeah, that's what I think of. 70s style, more kind of movies. You know, let's say from the Dirty Harry films or The Bullet with Steve McQueen, right? Or let's say like Dukes of Hazzard, things like that. That real kind of 70s gritty style look. That's what I think when I look at this vehicle on here. Do you think the costume looks better? Do you think he still looks too small, too slender? And again, this is just early footage. I still believe that we will be seeing an upgraded version of both the Batmobile and the suit 3/4 of the movie towards the end of the movie. So they can always change and upgrade it. They've got plenty of time. They're only recently starting filming, aren't they? So they can always make upgrades with the reshoots later. So those are my overall thoughts on the second and third recent pieces of footage leaked out for this Pattison Batman. Are you excited for this? Are you less hyped for this? It'll be more interesting when we start getting shots of the villains. As anyone who doesn't know, they're going to incorporate a lot of Batman's villains. When we're getting Riddler, Catwoman, Penguin. I think that's it so far. I think we're going to get a few more released as well as we go on in the future on this. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll provide you more analysis on this in the future. And that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very soon.